Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the My Football Writer podcast. Whether you are watching us on YouTube or listening to us on Spotify, I am Jack Wright. I'm here with Freddie Humphrey Wakefield and Will Grant, who's returned after a couple of weeks off. There's been a bit of a switch in the hierarchy. Think of it as Glenn Riddersholm taking over the matchday squad. Torup in Freddie's chair is taking a bit of a backseat only because he's just got back from Plymouth. I think he literally just got through the door 5 minutes ago, bless him. But yes, he's very tired, very sleepy, but he's got loads of analysis fresh from Home Park. Before we get into all of the terrible stuff, we will have a quick word from our sponsor, the Fat Cat and Canary, the most iconic, fantastic Norwich City pub in the fine city. There are many, many pubs for you to choose from, and we recommend that you choose the Fat Cat and Canary. And much like a fat cat, Norwich City rolled over and had their belly tickled by Plymouth Argyle on Saturday. You quite like that one. Yeah, I thought of that one. Again, before we go into some proper analysis, William, how the devil have you been? And Freddie, how was your Toby Carvery?
Yeah, all good, mate. Obviously, I had 2 weeks off due to being my 21st birthday, so definitely good to be back though. Yeah, absolutely get the poppers out, but yeah, it's a real shame to come back onto this podcast with a very, very annoying result at the weekend. But overall, I'm good, but just about.
Sorry, I was just trying to unmute my button there. It's been a long time. Toby Carvery was absolutely lovely. That was quite nice at about 8:30 last night. So that was this time last night, actually. Yeah, I was on my way back to Thetford. I don't live in Thetford. I live in Brighton, which is where I am. But yeah, 1,000 miles of travelling nearly for that. It's not great. It's not great. But while we're on the topics of sort of shouting people out, I'd like to give one of my own to someone who I know has been watching this channel a lot, Risho Szymanski, the father of a really good friend of mine who I went to Plymouth with. I know he watches all of the videos and he loves the podcast. So just thought I'd just say hello to him and give him a bit of recognition. But I don't really want to give that performance any recognition, Jack, but I've got to do it because I was there. I've got no other choice.
It was so hideous, wasn't it? Blimmin' hell.
Yeah, no, it was bad.
But I must say, I'm also with Freddie in this one because I also went for a carver as well last week. So I must say, I think we've got a 2-1 advantage on Team Toby Carvery's, right?
Exactly, mate.
When gravy is the only positive talking point in the podcast, you know it's not been a good result. But yes, I think we can now officially call the season off. The roller coaster, has officially gone down into a pit somewhere and will not be coming down. It reminds me of that roller coaster on The Simpsons where the children keep on hitting their teeth into the barrier. Painful, whether it's up or down. And obviously coming off the back of what was a really quite impressive win against West Brom, one where you kind of secretly thought the playoff door could be open. It was slammed shut by Ryan Hardy's double in the space of about 5 minutes in a first half that for the first 20, I would say that we dominated. But in the end, you look at the statistics, Plymouth probably should have won by more. And I would also say that it's not simply a case of us conceding two silly defensive moments in that game. If you're not beating the bottom club, that's clearly a much, much bigger problem. Freddie, we will come to you for your first-hand analysis of what you saw with your own eyes, and William will obviously let you jump in as well with your own analysis.
No, it was It's weird because it felt as if Norwich were the better team for majority of that. In my opinion, I thought especially first 20 minutes of the game overall, some really neat bits of play, but just lacking a final pass. And it was the two worst bits of defending in the entire match, which shock horror lead to the two goals that completely shaped the match's outcome. The first goal, Cordoba does play him onside. I've had a proper look at it, and he does. It's only about half a yard, but he keeps him onside. And as Torup said in his post-match presser, if none of his defenders are bothering to react and will just stand there with their hands up, that's not good enough. And then the second goal is just, it's like Benny Hill. I can hear the music playing watching it back. It is absolutely comical. I think it's Duffy and Fisher run into each other, and Hardy just takes the ball and he won't miss from where he is. It's just a comedy of errors, and it sums up Norwich's season. It has been a comedy of errors. That's why they are where they are, and despite the fact they are the league's second top goal scorers, they've got one of the leakiest defences, and you don't have to sort of question it when they concede goals like they did at the weekend. Just so many individuals were nowhere near the required level or standard. Some of them genuinely had absolute hooners. That some of the worst individual performances I've seen this season from a lot of those players. You just said it there. They are the bottom club in this division, and they came out of it. They come out of it with all 3 points, and they never should do. We are given a lifeline by a man who was given lifeline after lifeline after lifeline this season in Josh Sargent. 60 seconds into the second half. It's not as if he scored with 15 minutes to go to set up a nervy finish. We came right out of the blocks, scored a lovely goal, and we are right back into the game. And then what? The intensity didn't ramp up. I don't recall another shot on target after the goal. I can't really recall anything after the goal apart from where Hardy cleared a corner pretty much right off the line, but just nowhere near the requirements for a team whose genuine aspiration is to be in the top six. It's simply not good enough, which is a story we say almost every single week. What you said earlier, Jack, is spot on. The season is over now. It's complete. It's done and dusted. And we will now see, as Torup has said, who is going to be here, probably through his team selection and whoever gets new contracts over the next couple of weeks, whoever they may be, and players will probably end up not getting them as well. But I think over the next 6 games and the next month now, we're going to truly see who is in this for the long run. Because I think even based off Saturday, I think I can already tell a few who aren't going to be here.
Yeah, I think I think what's also want to add is as well 2 wins against the bottom 12 sides all season. Honestly, it's just quite damning. And then I think if you were to also look at those wins, I think against Luton, it was quite a close game. But even the game against Derby, although sides was so good that day, it did still feel like that Derby could also probably equalise in the last 10 minutes. So, yeah, it's been very, very rough. And I absolutely feel for Freddie actually watching that game live, because it's absolutely horrible. Also on second glance as well. I also share the sentiment as well. I feel like we could have also probably been maybe 3-0 down before half time as well. And the thing is, watching Norwich, we have to play so well to try and create opportunities. But it feels like when the opposition come towards that goal, we just look so dangerous every single time. And we concede so much space and territory. It's honestly just baffling, really. And the thing is about this project as well, we want to try and bring in all these young players and stuff like that. And I think when you've got young players, you need a lot of reliable senior heads as well. But it feels like in recent games, especially, I'd probably go back to the two examples being obviously yesterday, but the game against Wednesday as well. I think maybe about a month ago now as well, where the likes of Duffy, Stacey, McLean, they're making such horrible errors. And it's really, and considering when you've got a very, very young side who kind of needs some guidance, when those players are making defensive mistakes and errors after time, it's quite alarming, right, as well. And I just feel like those guys, especially when I think teams break through our shape, they're not making. Oh, here we go. Jesus Christ, sorry. They're not making enough calculated decisions when they're trying to kind of get through games, if you will. And I just feel like if we're going to really, really thrive in the years to come, there's got to be some decisions made about those players, because it feels like right now those guys are actually the ones letting us down, and that is quite sad, really. And it kind of gets to a stage there where you want to try and find some familiarity and solidity, but when those guys aren't actually giving you that, then it gets a bit of a problem, really, because those are the guys that you kind of want to rely on in the years to come. But it feels like right now, as I actually said on a previous live stream yesterday in the Norwich space, as if I was to go through every player in our team and name a player that I could generally see given as maybe every game given a 10 out of 10 performances, or even like 8 out of 10 performances, I could probably only name Callum Fisher after what I've seen this season. That's not saying players have been bad, but if you look at it next season, we're going to lose the likes of Sainz, Sargent, Nunes, etc. But also as well, you probably expect the likes of Stacey to be moved on, obviously Dor to go back, and Stacey, Duffy, etc. They'll probably get moved on as well. Obviously, we have seen some glimpses of Schwartau, Somani at times, etc. But it still feels like the jury's still out on those guys to do it over a long period of time. I'm going to quickly sort my my camera out for you guys quickly. Please take over.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was following it as well, and when I heard 2-0, I got Vietnam flashbacks of the 6-2. I really thought that floodgates would open, and it to be another comically bad result at Plymouth. I mean, obviously, with my Twitter account, I did kind of secretly think, "Oh, content," but obviously, every time I ever think that I've got an opportunity for content, I also feel deeply sad. But I think this was one of the first times this season that I felt that this result was embarrassing. I felt disappointed, and I felt that there's been matches where we've been outfoxed or outfought, or a better team has come and rightfully played well against us. But bottom of the league, Plymouth, pretty much cut adrift with almost nothing to play for, and just like you've both said, just so error strewn pretty much throughout the entire 11. It was just, unspeakably awful from literally almost everyone, apart from our dear Josh Sargent, who again has saved our bacon how many times this season. But yeah, you look at Stacey giving the ball away cheaply, like you say, Duffy colliding with Fisher, Cordoba looking slack, Signs not really looking that interested. And who were our impact substitutes? Slimani and Hernandez kicked the ball onto his own foot. Absolutely no impact from that bench at all. Will, you touched on it slightly. I'll sort of direct the question a bit more specifically. Do you think this was a bad day at the office for a lot of these individual players, or do you think these poor performances have been coming mostly because we obviously had that result against West Brom, that was promising. There's been times this season where there's been players in and out, suspension, injuries, etc. Do you think these poor performances are consistent, and we're warranted in critiquing a lot of these players, or do you think just going for these players' heads after this game is a little bit unfair?
Yeah, I think going into this game, I was very interested to see whether he'd go for a back five or he kind of stick with his back four. And obviously, I was definitely in favour for, obviously, JHG to kind of go to back four, as obviously Plymouth are a team which probably are going to sit back and be a bit more defensive. So I thought trying to use those players and trying to get a bit more qualities in terms of attacking and trying to get our more technical based players on the ball would be a better shout in this game going forwards. The thing is with Norwich, as I said pretty much in my first kind of sentence in this podcast, I said about our poor shocking away record actually against teams in this league actually winning games. It didn't surprise you because it feels like there's been many games this season where kind of Norwich have had these teams who are very, very happy to kind of sit in a more like a back five formation and just try to be a bit defensively orientated. And we just find it so hard to create opportunities. And I feel like if I was to pick an example probably of where Norwich probably regressed in terms of against these sides, I would probably go back to the QPR game when I think we were at, this is obviously the home game. We were pretty much all over them. We peppered them and we deserved to win that game pretty much. And we limited QPR to absolutely nothing. The difference is now is that we are still trying to be a very, very practice side of the ball, trying to unlock defences. But the big major issue is still we're now getting into a stage where we look so weak on transition and every counter attack looks like it could be a goal for the opposition, really. And it's really alarming, actually, because especially when JHG wants to try and gain control of the game. And when that isn't happening, really, you start to get a bit alarmed in terms of maybe his tactical nous, if you will. So if I was to say I was surprised, I probably wasn't surprised at the result as such. But maybe that's just because I've had so much scars of Norwich going to these sides. Even last season, for example, when I think we went to Rotherham and we lost 2-1. Etc. So I wasn't surprised, but I definitely expected more. Your thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I think it's perfectly fair, really. There's not much else I can add. I think the only thing I can really sort of add for me is just watching the game and sort of seeing what was just unfolding. It felt robotic. This team feels robotic. It feels like they have just been put through the same thing over and over and over. The way in which they are just sort of presenting themselves on the pitch as individuals. It's really hard to almost sort of like last season as well, which was a big thing fans wanted. They wanted a team they could connect with that had a clear identity. There is an identity there. You can see what the playing ideologies are, but it is. I personally, I mean, I don't watch many games, so perhaps I'm not the right person to say this because I think I've only watched about 7 games in person this season, probably less. So I'm probably not that much qualified to talk on it. But it feels really difficult to connect with that side at the moment. It's really difficult to really see what they're doing is showing signs of evident progress. That's not to say that I think that's the manager's fault at all and that his ideas aren't working and he's not the right person to lead the team. I just think there is so many individuals who are a little bit incapable of doing what they're being told to do, and it's making it really difficult to associate myself with this team.
Could I ask a question about that, Freddie? Because
yes.
I don't know about you. Do you feel like me, for example, it's more the experienced players like letting us down, or is it more the younger players? Because the thing is to me, because I've got a really weird conundrum in my head, I'm thinking to myself, okay, so if I'm blaming the older players, for example, the likes of Duffy and Stacey, for example, who are supposed to be the leaders of this side, especially from a defensive aspect, if I'm saying they're bad and they need to be replaced, you're then looking at a back four potentially next year. Obviously, we'll probably bring in some players as well, but next year it could be a back four, for example, of Mahuvu, Fisher, Cordoba and McConville, and then all of a sudden that looks so young, and then that probably just like neglects experience as well, and those kind of like and also like those mental qualities as well could be kind of missing as well. So it just feels like right now I'm just like my head is just spinning in circles. Do you kind of see as well the more like experienced players are like letting us down, or do you see like maybe a bit more on balance, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. I think it's most definitely a balance. I think the younger players, of course, this is some of their first full seasons at a senior level of football. They are learning, and they're learning the hard way of being chucked right in at the deep end and needing to play in these tough matches against sides who can be tough in any given match. But that was a good point. I completely forgot to even mention it earlier, but that was a big thing for me in the game yesterday. There was no sense of leadership. There was no sense of seniority. There was so many instances. I can remember I can remember almost exactly a free kick at 2-0 down, and not a single player was communicating with one another. They weren't telling their teammate who to mark or where to go. They were just sort of glancing at each other and then just decide. They would look at an opposition player and just sort of go to them. Eventually, Marcondes just sort of stuck his arms up in the air as if to try and rile them up. No one looked interested. They genuinely just didn't. They didn't look like they wanted to be there at 2-0 down in that first half. I don't know if there's a serious mental barrier for a lot of these players and their mentalities and going through a lot of the same thing time and time again. And they can all say that no, we need to be better, we need to do this, we need to cut out these errors. It's one thing saying it. There's another thing just trying to actually get your teammates through a really difficult period in a match. It's where you need your experienced players just to rally up the troops. You need Kenny McLean as captain to give everyone that bit of a kick up the backside. You need Duffy to just try and command the back line. But it's so frustrating, especially something like that just no one had a sense of wanting to help each other out at times, and there were so many just poor little mistakes and just tiny things that no one was going up to a teammate and just going, "Oh, look, come on, head up, you'll get the next one, you'll do this." They just thought, they look at it happen, cock their head backs in frustration, and they get on, and that was that. Just no sense of leadership. It's almost as if maybe they have decided it's done, and they're just thinking, right, 6 more games of this, and I can do whatever.
But it's also even concentration as well. I don't know what Cordoba is doing for that offside incident. It's just mind-boggling just how you can be so almost how you can let that situation bypass you. Then, and I really feel like I don't know if it's probably due to the Duffy and the Cordoba partnership, but right now that feels so leaky as well. I don't know whether if Cordoba's kind of getting into the habits of what Duffy is, because it feels like both of them right now are just defending so terribly. It feels like we're just defending impulsively, is if actually just using their brains, because the amount of space that players are getting just to try and pick up runs through our defence is honestly horrible to kind of watch, really. And I'd probably say, obviously, I think in the last podcast or two, I think I was hyping up Cordoba and kind of how good he was probably during that, maybe towards January or when he came back into the team. But it feels like, especially since Christmas, Duffy has been really off it. I remember actually saying to you guys in our quick fire hot takes that Duffy's probably up there for me in terms of maybe our top players of the season right now. But his drop-off has been really, really concerning. And I definitely think JHT's probably also probably seen that as well. And probably I think maybe there's probably going to be a few alarm bells, because there's so well having a defensive structure, but if you've got players in that who are just gonna just come out into really, really stupid areas and just act without any kind of intelligence, it really, really does affect you as a team, really, because the opposition just have so much space and time to really hurt you.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, Will. The amount of players who seemingly, before, the first half of the season, you'd think, okay, really decent campaign. Signs, fantastic campaign. Slimani pre-Christmas, absolutely. We thought we got a steal off Sheffield United. Duffy, the same again. I mean, even, like you say about Cordoba, he was fantastic, against Stoke and those other couple of games. And now he's just completely dropped off entirely. And Freddie, I'm sure you felt the same. Following the second half, you're just thinking, well, they're just not going to get back into this. Plymouth are going to stick everyone behind the ball, because why would they want to do anything else? It's one of those where the inconsistency of individuals' performances is so frustrating. But obviously, this is one bad result in the short term. What it has done in terms of the perspective of the season and the context of next season is it's, like we've been discussing even now, put a microscope on the entire squad itself. And real question marks are now starting to be brought up, because we've got a scenario where we've probably got 3 players, and we know who they are, who are star assets that will likely be sold for large money. And we also have a raft of senior players who are getting past it, and we will need to move on. I looked this up yesterday. Of Napper's signings that he's made, only 2 of them started against Plymouth, and one of them was Marcondes, who was an emergency. So that tells you that either Napper's signings need a bit of time, or maybe just aren't that good. I think the general question is, do we think this is going to be a bigger summer of upheaval than we first thought? We kind of initially thought, this is the transition season. We'll have players bed in, and then it will all be fine. Will it actually be a lot more chaotic than we originally first thought?
I think it needs to be, but I also think as well, I think we also need a different profile of recruitment as well, because it feels like we've got a lot of exciting young talent there in the likes of Schwartal, Mahuda, etc. But it does feel like right now not to buy some players who are entering their prime years, because I know they cost quite a lot of money these days, and that is kind of how football works. But Norwich are in a state now where they've got some players who are probably edging towards their end of their careers, really. And then they've got an absolute complete end of the other spectrum, where you've got players who are now starting out in their careers, and there kind of needs to be a bit of middle ground there, because what we're seeing 1 week where Norwich are absolutely fantastic at home, and then the next week we go away to the likes of Oxford, and we go away to like QPR, and we just play so terribly, really. I just feel like, obviously, I think going into this project, I definitely expected these young players to kind of be a bit inconsistent as right. I think that's probably quite a natural conclusion to be made, but it definitely does still feel like, especially for me, is that right now we kind of need players, especially coming into next season, the likes of Cernach, the likes of Schwarzer, the likes of Stamani. They need to start showing the fans that they can really contribute with real good, consistent performances, because what we've seen, I think, from most of them is really good flashes. It might be quite harsh, maybe, that assessment, but I generally do feel like the reason why we probably haven't been where we are is just because we just haven't showcased that across a long period of time, really. And I just feel like maybe having a few experienced heads in there, probably who are entering their prime years, maybe a centre half, for example, who could probably maybe lead the back four in quite a authoritative way, maybe alongside a Cordoba, for example, or maybe a midfielder similar actually to Kenny's mould, who's probably a bit more mobile and a bit more reliable on the ball as well. Because I feel like, especially, I don't know about you guys, I'm going to give Freddie so much questions here, but I really am worried about McLean right now as well. I don't know if like it's due to his like recent perceived illness or anything like that, but he looks really out of form. It's really concerning me. The thing is, I think we all probably looked at that team sheet against Plymouth, for example, and we saw the likes of, oh wow, it's Nunes, Marcondes, and clean, but it just didn't really work out against Plymouth. And if we're all saying that midfield is absolutely fantastic against the sides who, respectively, are going to go down into League One next season, then it is quite maybe we are being a bit too overreacted about how good these guys are. But I'm just really am worried about these experienced players and just how poorly recently they've been underperforming. I think I just got severe flashbacks and just horrendous thoughts really about that game yesterday and the Sheffield Wednesday one in particular. But it just feels like we've got so much players out of form, and then obviously Jack says about another big summer. But the thing is, last year was supposed to be a rebuild summer, and I think obviously at the start of the season maybe it wasn't communicated maybe as much as it was under the Farker-Weber regime. But I definitely did hear words and terminology about a 3-year plan, for example, and I think there's definitely more next year, especially. There's going to be more expectation about us to try and bring in more players and who have probably got better quality, but also players that are going to take us maybe towards a playoff team, for example. That has to follow through, and I'm just unsure whether that's going to happen if we're going to get rid of these experienced players and then replace them with a similar age group of last season, because it feels like although I absolutely love the youth and all these young players coming through, etc. There needs to be balance. It's so important, and I just feel like, especially, I just feel like we're going to have to, especially next year when there's going to be more pressure on. There's got to be a bit more leniency in terms of age profiling, and maybe a bit more players who are probably going to head into their prime years. Sorry for my long ramble, Freddie. Mate, you've got so much questions there, but my head is just on Mars a bit at the minute.
Yeah, no, mine was on Jupiter in that way, and let alone Mars. This summer will be huge. This is going to be a really, really intriguing summer to see what Torup and Napa do in terms of who comes in and who leaves. But I agree with what Will has said. I think this team needs players that are in their prime years because there isn't enough of them. But Norwich need that balance of players who have got good careers behind them, who have played a good style of football and can do it well. Ultimately, albeit those players are expensive to come by, but if our sporting director says we're in a position not to sell, so that we don't really have to worry about finances, spending big money shouldn't be an issue. And I think with the Atanasios who are going to want to make money on their investment, they have got to show from the very top hierarchy of this football club down to the bottom that is exactly what they're about. I've got a feeling a lot of money is going to be chucked at this window because it has to be. Because if this project fails with Torup, Norwich continue this really dangerous cycle they've been in for about 4 years now, since the departure of Daniel Farker, where a new manager comes in, he inherits a team that isn't his, and then have to learn a style of play that they haven't been doing, and then it has to click. It ends up not working, and then Dean Smith goes. David Wagner comes in. It's not his team. He brings in his players. It ends up in a playoffs, but it wasn't working because it wasn't an identity of play. It wasn't good enough, and fans were sick and tired of it. And then some players go and on free transfers, a few leave in the summer. But what happens? Johannes Torup comes in. It's not his team. He brings in his own players, and lo and behold, there is a mix of players that aren't his. There are players who are, but they're extremely young, so they don't have the experience of playing a really high level of football in this country, in one of the most physical and intense leagues in England, maybe even in Europe, some could argue. But that's what I really worry about, is Torup will get backed financially by the owners and the sporting director. A lot of players will go, a lot will come in. Maybe it ends up not working out. Let's say we're in November of next season and Norwich are in a similar position. Patience will run thin, and there's only so much time you can have as a manager at a club who aspire to be in the division above. Let's say it doesn't work and Norwich end up there and Torup does end up going. Then what happens? It's the same as the last two managers. A new one comes in. It's not his players. He has to teach his style. It takes time. Norwich are in a really dangerous cycle of that at the moment. And what I worry about is the fact with a lot of people now, patience is beginning to really run thin. That my biggest worry is we spend a good amount of money, bring in whatever players we bring in, we let go whoever does, and it doesn't work. And we're back to square one for the 5th year in a row.
Let's not forget we didn't exactly we weren't exactly shrewd in the summer and in January. That's what is it, 6 or 7 million on Eurosec. We obviously bought McConville for a fee. There is a £4 million buy clause for Jacob Wright. So you add that on top of the summer acquisitions that we obviously all know about. That's now 2 disappointing, heavily spending windows that we're now kind of like, okay, well, it's fine. We'll just give it time. It's fine. Just we'll wait till the next window where we'll spend lots of money and then we'll get angry. But I found myself this afternoon watching Southampton get relegated, the quickest team to do it. And if they don't get a point in the rest of their games, they will be the worst Premier League team statistically of all time. And that wasn't by any stretch of the imagination a minnow of a club scraping up. That was a newly relegated team bouncing back, and was able to spend quite a lot of money. And could you just imagine? We thought we were going to get in the playoffs this season. Just imagine the state of the Premier League next season if we had managed to have gone up with Duffy and Stacey in our defence. Oh, that would have been funny. I mean, at least we didn't lose to our nearest rivals to create a 12-point gap. Don't. That was the only highlight of Saturday. Anyway, and speaking of yellows, see what I did there? Clever. I saw this stat after the match, and obviously we've spoken a lot about our losing points from winning positions, but how about our points total from losing positions? Now, this is from NCFC numbers. Our record when conceding first away from home since December 2023 is 1-0, drawn 5, and lost 17. Now, that's obviously December 2023. So I guess Wagner has a bit of a say in that, but I think what that proves is that is kind of terrible form that supersedes 2 coaches, that has overseen 2 regimes, and is beyond any form of tactical nous. There is something inherently wrong here. Now, obviously, you're going to set up differently away from home than you are at home. But we've been kind of hinting at it and obviously discussing it previously. Is this indicative of a lack of plan B, and just the inability to switch it up and the inability to be less robotic, so to speak?
Well, I think Torup did try and switch it up against Plymouth in terms of I think he went a bit more direct, especially in the last minutes of the game. Maybe Freddie can probably add a bit more to that, than what I can as such. But I think if I was to speak about that point, I think probably had to break it down, because I think in the season under Wagner, it was very, very hard to actually predict about how we're going to actually go into those games last season. I think go back to the game we played against Leicester, I think last season, where it was literally just like parking 10 double-decker buses on a straight road. It was that negative. But then some games we looked quite good on the counter-attack, and then some games we looked all right on the ball. But this year, for me, I think, especially away from home, our game plan is so orientated about trying to get control of the game. And it feels like when we're trying to get control of the game, that first goal is so important. And I think, obviously, those stats actually showcase that, albeit to be honest, we haven't been very, very good all season on the road as such. But I do think there's a real point there where I feel like our philosophy is so orientated to try and create the best chances we can for ourselves. And we really kind of take much shots from range, and we just try and play that perfect goal, albeit that that does have success at times at this level as such. But I just don't think Norwich have the quality to do that regularly over a season, really. Whether that will change next year, I hope so. But I just think as well, there's many times this season as well where I've been in an away end, and I'm sure Freddie has, and I'm sure you have, Jack, and I'm sure Henry has as well. But there's been many times when you be in that away end and Norwich are trying to hold on for a lead, and we make the game so difficult for ourselves. We just turn the game and just help the opposition as such, because we go a bit more direct. Obviously, we aren't really a team that kind of plays direct as well. So I just think that those away stats are probably loads of factors. I think the first goal is so important for us, but I generally have always said this as well. I think when you have such a young squad as well, you probably won't get as much gamesmanship being kind of portrayed as frequently as well. And again, that goes back to my point about next season, really, because I'm really unsure whether our transfer model is going to probably switch away from such a young squad. I still see Napa on top going to go hard again, trying to get some really good youngsters through the door and trying to build from there, really. But I don't know if I could see that stat changing too much in the years to come when we're so orientated about trying to quite big portion of money. And I just don't know whether we're going to buy and try and get those players who have got a bit more nous and determination. I think we're trying to do it a bit more of a different way and trying to get players who have got kind of leadership qualities, but they kind of have been showcased as much at the likes of McConville, for example. But yeah, I think there's so many reasons why Norwich is away form and why it fluctuates so much. I could be here all day, but I just generally think, especially the first. It feels like for Norwich, if we score the first goal away from home, we might win. But normally we probably don't. But yeah, that first goal is so important for us, especially away.
Yeah, no, it is. I think this. I can't really. My mind still wonders as to why this team is so bad away from home. I can't get my head around it. I don't know what it is. There is so many different factors it can be. I don't know if just they have defeatist mentalities when they go away from home and they expect to lose, because that's just what's happened for them so many times. It's 4 wins from 20 away matches this season. That's inexcusable with the talent we have. Absolutely inexcusable. That it's ridiculous with the quality Norwich possess. They've got 2 of the top 3 scorers in the division. They've got a team who has got so much ability and potential, and they cut, for whatever reason, away from home. They are a completely different side. When they play at home, they've got all the confidence in the world. They just somehow seem to be 10 times better than what they are away from home. It's ridiculous. I would love to know if this has come up in the dressing room or this has been addressed by players or the staff, because it should be. It's crazy, the contrast of performance levels and even individuals' performances at home and away. I don't know what it is. I simply really don't know what it is. And that statistic you gave of no wins, in how many months is that? 16 months, pretty much, or probably more than that. But that is just shocking. I know away from home, it probably is harder to come back from behind, but it's just shocking. To not once do it is mad. That's something like a relegation side. It's crazy. This is a team that finished 6th last season, will probably finish about, at best, maybe 9th this season. And that away form, it's one of a team who should be right down the bottom end of the table. We've been talking about this for 2 seasons now. They can't do it for whatever reason. They can't do it, and I really wish we would get an answer as to why that is. Because I don't think anyone does know.
Well, it's a good thing we've got some easy away games left this season. We've only got to go to Turf Moor and the Riverside as 2 of the away games. But we do have Sunderland at home, who aren't doing that well this season. Oh, wait, they're right in the playoff mix. Where do you think the rest of this season is going to go? Obviously, Freddie, you've said 9th is probably the best we can do. What would you like to see Norwich do in the remaining matches in order for it to be a respectable end to the season? Would you like to see the defence tightened up? Would you like to see us win all of our away games? Or would you like to see all of the senior players dropped and we basically play the academy?
I just want to see him try. That's all I want. I want to see 100% genuine effort in the rest of these games. There is no excuse not to fight, because what have you got to lose? You're not getting relegated. You're not going to get top 6. It can mathematically happen, but it's not going to happen because you need to win every game and pretty much hope everyone above you loses, well, at least 3 times. All I want is, and this is what I want from any game, whether Norwich are bottom of the league, they're top of it, or they're smack bang in the middle, give it absolutely everything you have got as a player, as a team, as a unit. Just try. There is no excuse to hide or just not give your absolute best. If you don't give your absolute best as a sporting individual, regardless of what sport you're in, then what is the point in you being there? There is no point if you are not trying your hardest. I don't care what the team is, whether we're only playing players who are genuinely interested in trying or that will be here next year, whether it's all the youth players that are out, whether it's the same lineup every single week. All I want is for them to try, because if you don't, what is the point? You might as well forfeit the match. There is no point if you are not going to try. That's all I want. Effort. Just show that you are still interested in giving something to the fans who pay to watch you, who travel ridiculous amount of miles and just give up pretty much so much of their weekend just to bother to try and hope that you can do something that can make them happy. If you're not trying, what's the point?
Well, I want to see Jacob Wright play football because I thought it was so good against Plymouth when he came on, actually. I was quite surprised, actually, about his performance because although we saw quite a lot of nice, vibrant passes and some nice bits of movement, I was also really impressed by his defensive work as well. I thought that was very, very good and very, very solid. And I just hope that hopefully he gets trusted to play more games going into the rest of the season. I'm really, really unsure now about playing Kenny in the heart of midfield. Maybe you want to play him more on the left side and allow Wright to maybe be a bit more dictative and try and allow him to kind of feel like he's trying to be really part of something as well, because obviously Norwich want to try and sign him permanently as well. And I just think if we're going to try and go into next year with some real positivity, then I think it's really important we see the likes of McConville, Wright, those 2 guys especially really trying to build on and hopefully trying to get themselves a real good starting spot next season. It would also be nice to see Eurosec as well, but who knows what is happening there. One thing about Eurosec I do want to bring up is because I think I saw that Liam Gibbs is supposed to play some minutes with the under-21 soon as well. Why can't Eurosec do that as well? You know what I mean? In that 2-month period, the messaging which we're getting is that he needs match fitness. So surely, trying to build him up and trying to start games at that level, and then trying to make him kind of get a real good rhythm and fluidity to his game. Surely that should have been discussed, right? So I have no clue how those 2 situations differed, but obviously I don't work in that professionalism, so I can't really comment too much as well. But I think mainly what I want to see as well is just I don't want us to be sat here in a month's time speaking about the same thing where Norwich with a good 20-minute spell and then we concede a really, really crap goal and then we just try and find answers and we end the game without 3 shots on target. I want us to try and be a bit more ambitious. I want us to go to those away games like Burnley, for example, and have no fear because all too many times this season, especially away from home, I've seen a team which has played quite conservatively and a team which really hasn't kind of gone for it and kind of showcased a desire to win a game away from home. I've seen a team who wants to try and gain control and just be a bit flat and a bit passive really at times as well. So I don't want to be talking about those negative trends, for example. Look, I know the whole fan base want to see lights on the Conville right all play those games, but as well, I think the best chance of those guys flourishing, you're also going to have some kind of like experience there, for example, for the guys to kind of flourish. So whether that's a Kenny, a Stacey, for example, albeit those guys have been quite poor, I think the best chance for the likes of those young guys to flourish is for having those guys around them as well. So, yeah, I just want to be sat here speaking about the same trends again, where Norwich play well, we could see quite a poor goal, and then we try and huff and puff, but obviously then we don't have enough quality. And I'll just say about that game against Sunderland, I think that is probably one of the worst games for us to play because I just see them sitting in quite a kind of a compact shape. And those guys are so good on counter attack as well. So I'm very, 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 very intrigued to see how we go about that game as well. But I've got a bad feeling it could be quite nasty just due to the speed and dynamism of their front three. I think that isn't a game where I back Norwich to win. The thing is as well, I still feel like Thorpe has got to try and get some kind of credit back in the bank as well because if I thought that first game was very important as well, not only due to like a league position as such, but kind of almost just to kind of like retain some buy-in as well, for example, because the games against Burnley and Sunderland are going to be so difficult as well now, and it just feels like it could be another 0-point week as well. But hopefully, see just some good performances come now to the end of the season.
Yeah, only about a month to go, and then it'll all be done. And it's about 3 months until the transfer window opens. So, it comes around quickly. Let's finish the podcast on a high, shall we? After what's been a pretty dour, deconstructive one, let's do some quick fire hot takes, shall we? I've got 5 for you as normal. Who was your man of the match against Plymouth? Because I usually do anti-man of the match, but it was everyone.
The away fans.
Yes.
The away end. The away end. There were these three lads to my left who wouldn't stop singing. They were doing everything they could to get behind the team. No, I agree with Will. The 1,100 other people I was with.
Yeah. All right. The actual players that were on the pitch,
Jacob Wright.
Okay.
I'll say Sargent. He was the only one who looked interested.
By the way, what a goal as well on his weak foot as well on the volley. That was a great finish, wasn't it? Really?
That was amazing. It was a fan. That's 19 goal involvements in 26 league matches. If it weren't for him, we'd be 20th.
Hey, but it'll be fine. He'll still be here next season, right? Question 2: what is the nicest weather you can remember watching Norwich? Obviously, it was a lovely sunny day in Devon, wasn't it, Frederick? I'm trying to think of things that are linked. Nicest weather you can remember watching Norwich that wasn't yesterday.
Do you know what? The East Anglia derby last year was an absolute scorching day because I remember I came out the ground and Norwich just won and I just thought, yeah, like that is me. Lovely weather, and I just thought, yeah, that was great. And obviously the Nunes goal as well. And I believe as well, I think it is a year today as well since it happened as well. So I'll go for the East Anglia derby. That was an absolutely lovely day.
Thing is, there's this whole football conspiracy theory that whenever Norwich are on telly at Carrow Road, the sun is out and it's a gorgeous day. So I could go with the very easy answer and say any home game on the Sky cameras, but I will go with. I'm going to go weirdly with a night game because it was a very warm night, and it was. I remember being in t-shirt and shorts with a jumper tied around my back. It was Millwall at home, 2023, and we won 2-0. And that was at one of the warmest nights, and no, it was a really great night actually as well. So I'll go with that game.
I remember watching that in the pub. That was delightful. Nicest weather for me. I tried to go and watch Norwich versus Cambridge on what was the warmest day of the year when it reached like 40 degrees. But my train buckled and I arrived at full time.
Yeah. Here we go. The excuse is coming out again.
What the excuse is that it was the warmest day of the year and my train broke.
I guess that was fair. I was expecting you to say a time when you watched a game on the television. To be fair, so you know what, I respect that from you, Jack.
Keep the thermostat at 20. It's nice and cozy, William. Have you ever bumped into a Norwich player you've either publicly slated or not rated? If so, what was their reaction? William, we obviously know you might have had a little meeting with our captain.
Yes, yeah. I saw Kenny was active in Norwich about a week. Probably about a month ago now. So yeah, probably Kenny. I've been very nice about this podcast. I do know Kenny, by the way, but I'm just worried about what's to come. But overall, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of like the proper retro ones. Oh, ooh. Do you know what? So you know, in the Premier League season, I think when we had Cameron Jerome, I think under Alex Neil, and I just kept saying how woefully he was in front of goal because he worked so hard for the team. He was so good at that, but in terms of end product, he was so unreliable. So I'll go for Cameron Jerome.
Oh, where do you even start with players I've not rated and bumped into? You know, I'll do a Will start. If I'm going to go old school, I bumped into a certain big bad wolf, and of course I was lovely to him at the time, and I was delighted to see a Norwich player when I was about 10 years old at the time. But no, obviously did not rate him whatsoever. Recent one. I work in Primark. For those who don't know, I worked in the Norwich one over Christmas. I didn't actually tell anyone this. I only went and saw Ante Ciernats, didn't I? I may or may not have served him and said that I really liked his game. I didn't at the time. I really didn't. I love his game now. He's really coming to fruition. But
did you have the Croatia flag back then?
I did not have the Croatia flag at this time. No.
I'm really surprised at that. I don't think Andy would have shopped at Primark. I would have thought more of a Zara guy.
He was buying a lot of the home stuff, so I think he was just trying to really settle in still and buy his stuff. And here I was right opposite, who had said a lot of rather critical things about him. And no, it's a shame because even when he talks, like he's got this really high pitched voice, and he seemed a little bit nervous, bless him, but. Yeah, no. So I'll go with Rick Van Winkle, as we love to call him, and Mr. Ciernats.
Bless him. I to be honest, I haven't really bumped into any Norwich players. I can't really think of any. The only one that I can think of is Leon McKenzie, and I really liked him. Yeah. Oh, here's a great one. Worst away toilets.
Oh.
Can I go first on this one? 100%.
Yeah.
It's QPR away. If you've been, you know, but it is absolutely honking in there. So I went in, and then all of a sudden, I just bumped my head. Like, there's just something, like, I don't know what it is. It's just, I just bumped my head randomly. I was like, what the hell is that? So, yeah, I think QPR, put it this way, if the hygiene rating was a 1, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, no, it's definitely QPR. That whole away end is a shambles. The away end upper tier is one of the steepest in the country. The concourse is embarrassing. It's
The
like
leg room as well was hideous.
Exactly. It's awful. The food they serve, awful. Oh God, it's just it's a horrible away end that. They make it awkward for you as an away fan, but yeah, away toilet most definitely QPR.
We're going to go for a hat trick. Loftus Road, yeah, pretty stanky. And your final one: who wins if Farker's 2020-21 side plays Lambert's 11-12 squad? So essentially, a team that won the championship versus a team that finished 12th in the Premier League.
I think Fark squad.
You think Pookie and Buendia would outfox Fox?
Yeah, I just think if I was to really, really try and like El Tactico this, I just think those like overloads in midfield, etc. I think they could cause a bit too many problems, really.
Yeah, this is a really good question. This is a fantastic question, really, because football has changed so much. That's where you've got to look at this question really in depth. But I think Lambert's team. I think the experience and know-how of that entire squad and just the nous of Grant Holt would really frustrate Zimmerman and Godfrey. I think that team would be so physically dominant that they would just about do enough. I think probably Lambert's team would win it 1-0 with the worst goal you've ever seen. I just think they've got the know-how about them to beat a talented side like that.
Yeah, I think Holty would manage to get a goal against that defence, but a back four of Carl Norton, Zach Whitbread, Elliot Ward, and Mark Tierney. When you've got obviously Pookie Buendia and a fairly informed Kieran Dowell, Kenny Prime pulling the strings. You'd have to say 3-1 to Farker's Norwich, I think, to Farker's 2020-21. I think the Lambert side give them a good go, but I think it's 2 late goals, I say.
Oh, to have 2 late goals, eh?
Yeah.
To have that again.
Yes. Well, there we go. That's your lot. That's all of the debrief from the Plymouth match. Obviously, it's a bit of a post-mortem for the season as a whole, but mathematically the playoffs are still on. So who knows? Obviously, we haven't got very many of these podcasts left, so enjoy them whilst you have them. If you've enjoyed it, press that little red button. Comment down below. What do you think went wrong against Plymouth? Do you get the big plate or the small plate at Toby Carvery?
I got the big plate, by the way.
Yeah, no,
of course, I got the big plate.
If you get a small plate, I'm sorry, but it might be a certain woke nonsense personally, but you have to go in a Carvery, go big or go home. And cheers to another 0-point week. Amen.
Couldn't have put it better.
Yes, well, thank you for watching and listening. And we will see you in the next podcast very soon.